This is a bipartisan plan, probably more correctly called nonpartisan. Why? Because independents, Democrats, and Republicans of all ages, of all backgrounds and ethnic groups, support Social Security because it is, as President Biden indicated, a sacred trust. People, as Congressman Ryan pointed out, whether you're in a rural area or an urban area, whether you're on the coast or in the Great Plains of this country, you're impacted by Social Security. This is about your mother and father. It's about your brothers and sisters. It's what I call the great mirror test. If you can look your constituents in the eye, and we've provided every member of Congress with a card that says how many of your constituents receive Social Security. It is Congress's responsibility. This is not something that can happen through executive order. This is not something that the Supreme Court is going to rule on. This is only something that Congress can do. We're blessed in the House that we have a great leader in Nancy Pelosi. It was Nancy Pelosi back in 2005 that led the charge that was Horatio on the bridge, so to speak, to prevent the privatization of Social Security. And we were successful, and thank God we were, for had that plan succeeded, 2008 and 2009 would have been far more disastrous. And yet, as we all know, Social Security, in the midst of that recession, never missed a payment. Not a spousal or dependent payment, not a disability payment, and not a pension payment. And now it's Nancy Pelosi as well, along with President Biden and Democrats, and frankly, a number of Republicans who know in their hearts, and know because when they give that mirror test and go home and look at their family members in the midst of this pandemic, in the midst of this inflation, the most successful and the most efficiently run governmental program that we have should be embraced by everyone to give the access and relief that our seniors need, that our disabled veterans need, that our children continue to need. Presidents Eisenhower and President Nixon, the last president under whom we expanded Social Security benefits, that was in 1971, and a gallon of milk cost 72 cents. What seniors have endured. And like most, like my mother would turn to their children and say, "Don't worry about me. I don't want to be a burden." My mother, your mothers, were never a burden. They were an inspiration to us all. And we all owe it to them to make sure that they live out their lives in the simple dignity of knowing they can't retire into poverty. That is the promise of Social Security. It hasn't kept pace. How could it if it hasn't been expanded in 51 years? And now its solvency is in question, and this bill expands its solvency. And it, most importantly, expands the benefits that are so vitally needed, and especially, as Mr. Pascrell pointed out, to teachers and firefighters and police officers and municipal employees through no fault of their own have found themselves on the short end of Congress's inaction. It's the fierce urgency of now. When you go home, ask your constituents. When you travel to a senior center and face them eyeball to eyeball and say, "How can I help you?" they will respond by fixing Social Security, by giving us a COLA that actually reflects the costs that we incur, that don't tax us while we still work because we have to make ends meet, to make sure that we're expanding benefits across the board for everyone because it is everyone's program, and make sure that the wealthy pay their fair share. That's what President Biden has called for. That's why it's a sacred trust. That's why we're proud to put this before us and say we're here to expand Social Security, not end us. Please, I beg of my colleagues on the other side, join us in expanding benefits that you know need to be expanded on behalf of the citizens you represent. And with that, I yield back.